No one warned you that life would punish ignorance more than effort. No one warned you that comfort would quietly ruin you. No one warned you that doing what feels good now would cost you everything later. This is not encouragement. This is the truth. Most people grow up believing life is fair. They believe that if they work hard, stay kind, and follow the rules, things will eventually work out. But reality does not operate on fairness. It operates on awareness, leverage, and self-control. The sooner you understand this, the less confusing life becomes. This audiobook is not here to motivate you. Motivation is temporary. It fades the moment discomfort appears. This audiobook exists to confront you, to strip away comforting lies, and to replace hope with clarity. Hope without action is not optimism. It is self-deception. No one tells you that life does not reward effort. It rewards direction. It does not reward being busy. It rewards being useful. It does not protect the kind. It respects the prepared. And most people are not prepared. They drift through life reacting instead of choosing. They consume distractions and call it living. They wait to feel confident before acting. They wait for permission before changing. They wait for rescue that never comes. Waiting feels safe, but it quietly destroys momentum. What you are about to hear may feel uncomfortable, not because it is harsh, but because it is honest. These are truths most people sense but avoid. Truths that surface late at night when the noise fades and distractions lose their grip. You will not hear fantasy here. You will not hear motivational slogans. You will not hear promises that everything will be okay. You will hear reality, spoken calmly and clearly, without emotional manipulation, because clarity is power. Each chapter in this audiobook removes an illusion about life, about success, about comfort, about discipline, about time, and about control. Not to discourage you, but to wake you up. When you stop expecting life to be easy, you stop feeling betrayed by it. When you stop expecting fairness, you start seeing opportunity. When you stop waiting to feel ready, you begin to move forward. This audiobook is not for everyone. It is for those who are tired of pretending, tired of drifting, and tired of being distracted instead of directed. Listen carefully, not to be entertained, but to be sharpened. The dark truth about life is not that it is cruel. The dark truth is that life responds only when you do. Life is not fair, and it never was. This is not a flaw in reality. It is how reality works. Fairness is a concept taught early to make the world feel safe, predictable, and moral. But life does not operate on morality. It operates on consequence. It responds to leverage, timing, awareness, and decision-making. Expecting fairness from life is like expecting gravity to negotiate. It will not. From the beginning, people start in different positions, different environments, different families, different levels of support, exposure, and opportunity. Some begin with advantages they did nothing to earn. Others begin with obstacles they did nothing to deserve. Life does not pause to balance the scales. It moves forward without apology. And the sooner you see this clearly, the less energy you waste being angry at something that will not change. Life does not reward effort. It rewards leverage. Effort without direction is invisible. Millions of people work hard every day and remain stuck, not because they are lazy or incapable, but because effort alone is not the currency of progress. Results are, value is, awareness is. The world does not ask how hard you tried. It responds only to what you produce, what you control, and what you understand. This truth feels uncomfortable because effort feels personal. People attach their identity to how much they struggle, how much they sacrifice, how much they endure. But reality does not negotiate with sacrifice. It does not compensate pain. It does not reward suffering by default. Pain is not proof of progress. It is only proof that something is happening. Whether that something is useful depends entirely on direction. Acceptance of this truth is often mistaken for bitterness, but they are not the same. Bitterness resists reality. Acceptance understands it. Bitterness asks, "Why is this happening to me?" Acceptance asks, "Given that this is how things work, what do I do next?" One keeps you stuck. The other gives you clarity. And clarity is the beginning of power. When you accept that life is not fair, something important happens. You stop wasting energy on resentment. You stop comparing yourself to people with different starting points. You stop expecting rewards for effort alone. Instead, you begin to observe. You begin to learn. You begin to adapt. Acceptance does not make you weaker. It makes you precise. Complaining feels natural when things do not go your way. It feels justified. It feels like a release. But complaining is not harmless. Complaining trains helplessness. It reinforces the belief that control exists outside of you. Every complaint is a small confession that you believe reality owes you something. And the more you repeat that belief, the slower you adapt. Complaining delays adaptation because it replaces action with expression. It gives the illusion of movement without producing change. The world does not respond to frustration. It responds to adjustment. Those who adapt quietly move ahead while others stay behind, explaining why they should have been treated better. There is a difference between acknowledging difficulty and dwelling in grievance. Acknowledgement leads to strategy. Grievance leads to stagnation. One sharpens perception, the other dulls it. Life does not punish honesty, but it ignores excuses completely. When you stop expecting fairness, you stop being surprised by outcomes. You start seeing patterns instead of injustices. You begin to understand why certain people advance faster, not because they are better, but because they understand the rules of the game. They position themselves differently. They choose leverage over effort. They invest attention where it compounds. They adapt instead of complaining. This is not about becoming cold or cynical. It is about becoming accurate. Accuracy creates calm. Calm creates better decisions. Better decisions compound quietly over time. Once you stop demanding fairness, you stop fighting reality. And when you stop fighting reality, you can finally work with it. Life does not owe you balance. It does not owe you recognition. It does not owe you ease, but it does respond to clarity, discipline, and intelligent adjustment. The moment you accept this, you stop asking life to be fair and start asking yourself better questions. Once you stop expecting fairness, you start seeing opportunity. Most people live quietly desperate lives, not loudly, not dramatically, quietly. Their desperation does not scream. It whispers. It hides behind routines, responsibilities, and polite smiles. On the surface, everything looks normal. Jobs are stable. Bills are paid. Days are busy. But beneath that surface is a persistent feeling that something is missing, something unresolved, something slowly slipping away. Normal is not healthy. Normal is simply common. It is what happens when people adjust to dissatisfaction instead of confronting it. It is what happens when survival replaces intention. Most people do not wake up excited about their lives. They wake up relieved that nothing has gone wrong yet. And over time, that relief becomes the standard for happiness. Smiles are easy to perform. They cost little. They are socially rewarded. People smile at work, at gatherings, online, and even in the mirror. But smiles often hide exhaustion, regret, and a quiet sense of underachievement. Many people are not unhappy because life is cruel. They are unhappy because they abandoned what mattered to them and never grieved the loss. Dreams rarely disappear all at once. They fade gradually. First, they are postponed. Then, they are rationalized. Then, they are minimized. Eventually, they are mocked as unrealistic. People convince themselves that wanting more is childish, irresponsible, or selfish. Stability becomes the excuse. Safety becomes the justification. And slowly, the life they once imagined is replaced with a life they tolerate. Stability feels responsible. It feels mature. It feels safe. But stability without growth becomes a cage. It keeps people fed but unfulfilled, secure but restless, comfortable but uneasy. Many people confuse the absence of pain with the presence of meaning. They are not suffering enough to change, but not fulfilled enough to feel alive. Comfort is seductive because it asks very little of you. It does not demand courage. It does not challenge identity. It does not require risk. Comfort offers predictability in exchange for potential, and most people accept the deal without realizing the cost. Days blur together. Years pass quietly. And one day, the realization arrives that time has been spent, not invested. The tragedy is not that people fail. The tragedy is that most never truly try. They lower their expectations to match their circumstances. They call it realism. They silence the part of themselves that asks uncomfortable questions. They trade intensity for approval. They trade possibility for predictability. And they learn to call it a good life. This quiet desperation is reinforced by social norms. Society rewards conformity, not honesty. People are praised for endurance, not alignment. You are encouraged to fit in, to be reasonable, to not rock the boat. And so, most people learn to hide their dissatisfaction rather than address it. They learn to cope instead of change. Over time, this creates a strange form of suffering, not sharp enough to demand action, but heavy enough to drain energy. It shows up as constant fatigue, subtle resentment, distraction, and numbness. People scroll endlessly, consume endlessly, and stay busy endlessly, all to avoid sitting alone with the truth that something is wrong. The most dangerous part is that this life looks acceptable from the outside. There is no obvious crisis, no dramatic collapse, just a slow erosion of ambition and identity. And because it happens quietly, it feels normal. But normal is not healthy. Normal is simply what happens when too many people accept less than they want. Breaking out of this requires more than motivation. It requires honesty. Honest recognition that comfort has replaced purpose. Honest acknowledgement that stability has become an excuse. Honest acceptance that dissatisfaction is a signal, not a flaw. And that signal grows louder the longer it is ignored. Most people are not afraid of failure. Failure is visible. Failure is explainable. Failure has sympathy. What most people fear is standing out, being judged, being misunderstood, being different. Because standing out means risking the comfort of belonging. And for many, belonging feels safer than becoming. Most people aren't afraid of failure. They're afraid of standing out. No one is coming to save you, not because the world is cruel, but because that was never how it worked. The idea of rescue is something learned early, when authority figures fixed problems and consequences felt temporary. As adults, many people never fully let go of that expectation. They wait for clarity, for permission, for the right moment, or for someone to step in and change their situation. But waiting is not neutral. Waiting is a decision. Waiting feels passive, but it is active in its consequences. Every day spent waiting is a day reinforcing the belief that control exists outside of you. People wait for motivation before acting, for confidence before deciding, for certainty before moving. In reality, movement creates clarity, not the other way around. The longer you wait, the more difficult it becomes to start, because inertia hardens into identity. Rescue is a childhood fantasy, and it persists quietly in adult life. It shows up as hope that circumstances will improve on their own, that someone will notice your effort, that fairness will eventually intervene. It shows up in phrases like someday, when things settle down, or once I have more time. These are not plans. They are delays disguised as patience. Responsibility is uncomfortable because it removes excuses. It forces you to accept that where you are is, at least in part, a result of your choices, your tolerances, and your habits. But responsibility is also power. The moment you take responsibility, you reclaim agency. You move from reacting to directing. You stop waiting for permission and start setting standards. There is a quiet shift that happens when responsibility is accepted fully. Problems become information instead of threats. Obstacles become signals instead of injustices. You stop asking who is at fault and start asking what must be done. This shift does not make life easier, but it makes it simpler. Simplicity brings focus. Focus brings momentum. Blame feels justified when things go wrong. It offers relief from discomfort and protects the ego from guilt. But blame is expensive. It delays freedom by outsourcing control. Every time blame is assigned, action is postponed. The world does not respond to blame. It responds to adjustment. People who remain stuck often have well-developed explanations for why they are there. They can explain their circumstances in detail. They can trace the causes. They can point to external forces. But explanation without change is a form of stagnation. Understanding why something happened does not move you forward unless it leads to different behavior. When you stop blaming, you stop arguing with reality. You accept what is without approval or resentment. This acceptance is not weakness. It is clarity. And clarity is the foundation of effective action. You cannot change what you refuse to acknowledge, and you cannot control what you insist is someone else's responsibility. Being alone in responsibility does not mean being isolated. It means recognizing that no one else can do the internal work for you. No one else can think for you, decide for you, or act consistently on your behalf. Support may exist, guidance may exist, but rescue does not. This realization is often uncomfortable at first. It removes comforting illusions. It eliminates the fantasy of being carried through difficulty. But what replaces it is something far more valuable: control. Not control over everything, but control over response, direction, and effort. The moment you accept you are alone in responsibility, you stop waiting. You stop negotiating with circumstances. You stop hoping for rescue. And in that moment, something shifts. The moment you accept you're alone, you gain control. Hard work without direction is one of the most common traps people fall into. It looks responsible. It feels honorable. It earns praise. But it quietly drains energy without creating progress. Many people work harder every year and feel further behind, not because they lack discipline, but because their effort is pointed in the wrong direction. Effort alone keeps people exhausted. It fills days but does not move lives. Being busy creates the illusion of importance, but busyness is not value. Value is measured by outcome, not activity. The world does not reward how full your schedule is. It rewards what your actions produce. Busy does not mean useful. It does not mean strategic. It does not mean irreplaceable. Many people confuse motion with momentum. They answer emails, attend meetings, and complete tasks, yet remain in the same position year after year. Their effort maintains systems that benefit others while leaving their own position unchanged. Hard work becomes dangerous when it replaces thinking. When effort becomes automatic, direction is rarely questioned. People keep doing what they have always done because it feels productive, even when results are minimal. Over time, this creates burnout without progress, fatigue without freedom, and frustration without clarity. Skills create leverage. Leverage is the ability to produce greater results without proportionally greater effort. It is what separates those who advance from those who merely endure. Skills increase value. They make effort visible. They allow work to compound instead of reset each day. Without skills, effort expires. With skills, effort multiplies. Leverage comes from learning things that are difficult to replace. Communication, decision-making, problem-solving, and creation are examples of skills that increase control. These skills shift your position from dependent to valuable. They reduce reliance on permission and increase flexibility. Over time, leverage changes how effort is rewarded. Ownership beats obedience. Obedience trades time for security. Ownership trades responsibility for upside. When you only follow instructions, your value is capped. When you own outcomes, your value grows with results. Ownership does not always mean possession. It means responsibility for results, not just tasks. Many people work hard but remain replaceable. They do what they are told, when they are told, in the way they are told. This earns approval but limits growth. Obedience creates stability, but it rarely creates freedom. Ownership demands more thought, more risk, and more accountability, but it creates leverage over time. Direction turns effort into progress. Without direction, work is endless. With direction, work becomes selective. You begin to ask better questions. Is this necessary? Does this compound? Does this move me closer to control or keep me dependent? Direction filters effort. So energy is invested, not spent. Hard work should be a tool, not an identity. When effort becomes identity, people protect it even when it no longer serves them. They take pride in being overworked. They equate exhaustion with worth. But exhaustion is not evidence of progress. It is often evidence of misalignment. The goal is not to work less. The goal is to work with intention, to aim effort where it multiplies, to develop skills that increase leverage, to move from obedience to ownership, to replace constant motion with deliberate progress. Work smarter is not a slogan. It is survival. Discipline will cost you your old life, not all at once and not dramatically, but gradually and without apology. Growth changes how you spend your time, what you tolerate, and who you become. And when you change, distance appears. Not because you are better than others, but because you are no longer the same. Growth creates distance. It shifts priorities and alters behavior. You begin to say no to things you once accepted. You choose routines over impulses. You trade convenience for consistency. These changes are internal, but their effects are visible. And visibility makes people uncomfortable. Improvement often disrupts unspoken agreements. When you are predictable, you fit neatly into existing dynamics. When you improve, you challenge them without saying a word. Your discipline becomes a mirror. It reflects possibilities others have avoided. and not everyone appreciates that reflection. Familiar people often resist unfamiliar versions of you, not out of malice, but out of fear. Your change threatens the comfort of sameness. It introduces comparison where there was once familiarity. It forces questions people may not want to ask themselves, so resistance appears as jokes, skepticism, or subtle discouragement. Discipline is lonely because it removes you from crowds before it connects you to purpose. While others relax, you practice. While others indulge, you prepare. While others seek approval, you build quietly. This separation is not punishment. It is the natural consequence of choosing long-term alignment over short-term comfort. Loneliness is often misunderstood. It is not the absence of people. It is the absence of validation. Discipline requires acting without applause, without reassurance, and without immediate reward. It requires trusting a process that cannot yet be seen. That trust is developed in silence. As discipline deepens, old habits lose their appeal. Conversations feel repetitive. Environments feel restrictive. Activities that once entertained now feel empty. This can be unsettling. It can feel like loss. But what is really happening is refinement. You are shedding patterns that no longer fit who you are becoming. Many people retreat at this stage, not because discipline is too difficult, but because the social cost feels too high. They would rather be accepted than aligned. They return to familiar routines and familiar identities. They regain approval, but lose momentum. Discipline asks for a different kind of reward. Not praise, but progress. Not validation, but self-respect. It replaces external approval with internal stability. Over time, this stability becomes confidence. Not loud confidence, but quiet certainty. The distance discipline creates is temporary. As identity stabilizes, new connections form. Not many, but meaningful. Not based on convenience, but on values. But before that happens, there is a period of isolation. A period where the old life no longer fits, and the new one is still forming. This is the cost of growth, and it is non-negotiable. You cannot evolve and remain unchanged in your relationships, routines, and self-perception. Discipline reshapes everything it touches. If everyone approves of your growth, you're not growing. Being nice will not protect you. It never has. Niceness is often mistaken for goodness, but they are not the same. Being nice is about avoiding conflict. Being good is about having standards. One seeks approval. The other demands respect. Life responds very differently to each. Kindness without boundaries attracts disrespect. When people sense that you will tolerate anything to keep the peace, they learn how far they can push. Not everyone does this consciously, but patterns form regardless. The absence of boundaries teaches others how to treat you, and what is tolerated becomes repeated. Respect comes before love. This truth is uncomfortable because people want to be liked. They want harmony. They want to feel safe in relationships. But love without respect is unstable. It erodes over time. Respect creates structure. Structure creates safety. And safety allows genuine connection to grow. Weakness invites exploitation, not because people are cruel, but because systems respond to incentives. When consequences are absent, behavior escalates. When standards are unclear, expectations dissolve. Strength does not require aggression. It requires clarity. It requires the ability to say no without apology. Many people confuse boundaries with cruelty. They fear that asserting limits makes them selfish, cold, or unkind. In reality, boundaries are honest. They communicate expectations. They prevent resentment. They protect energy. Without boundaries, kindness becomes self-betrayal. Boundaries are not walls. They are filters. They do not push everyone away. They allow the right people closer. They separate respect from entitlement. They define what behavior is acceptable and what is not. And once defined, they reduce conflict rather than create it. People who lack boundaries often carry quiet resentment. They give too much, tolerate too much, and then feel unseen. This resentment does not disappear. It hardens, and eventually, it poisons relationships that could have been healthy if limits were set earlier. Strength changes how kindness is received. When kindness comes from a place of choice rather than fear, it carries weight. It is not pleading. It is offered. People respond differently to someone who can walk away than to someone who needs to be accepted. Being dangerous does not mean being hostile. It means being capable. Capable of leaving. Capable of enforcing standards. Capable of protecting your time, energy, and values. Danger creates respect. Respect stabilizes relationships. And within that stability, kindness becomes meaningful rather than draining. The goal is not to become harsh. The goal is to become clear. Clear about what you accept, clear about what you refuse, clear about who you are. Clarity reduces manipulation because it removes ambiguity. When you are kind without boundaries, you invite erosion. When you are clear with boundaries, you invite respect. And when respect exists, kindness is no longer taken for granted. You can be kind and dangerous at the same time. Comfort is the most addictive drug because it does not announce its danger. It feels harmless. It feels deserved. It feels like rest. But comfort does not arrive all at once. It creeps in quietly, disguising itself as safety, routine, and reward. And over time, it begins to erode potential without resistance. Comfort feels safe because it removes uncertainty. It reduces risk. It softens edges. But safety, when overextended, becomes stagnation. What feels comfortable today often becomes the limitation of tomorrow. The absence of challenge slowly weakens capacity, and weakness, unlike struggle, rarely announces itself. Discomfort is information. It signals growth, misalignment, or opportunity. It reveals edges that need to be sharpened, but most people treat discomfort as danger. They retreat at the first sign of resistance. They avoid difficulty. They seek relief. In doing so, they silence the very signals that could guide improvement. Easy routines create hard futures. When routines are built around convenience, they condition avoidance. They teach the body and mind to expect ease. Over time, tolerance for difficulty decreases. Small challenges feel overwhelming, and life, which never stops presenting challenges, begins to feel heavier than it should. Comfort rewards repetition, not progress. It keeps people looping through familiar behaviors that feel good but produce little. Entertainment replaces engagement. Consumption replaces creation. And time passes unnoticed. The days feel manageable, but the years feel empty. Growth demands friction. Without resistance, nothing strengthens. Muscles weaken without load. Skills dull without challenge. Character erodes without responsibility. Friction is not punishment. It is the mechanism of development. And avoiding it ensures decline, even if that decline feels pleasant at first. Many people wait for motivation before leaving comfort. They believe inspiration will appear and carry them forward. But motivation rarely survives comfort. Comfort dulls urgency. It numbs dissatisfaction. It makes change feel unnecessary until it becomes unavoidable. There is a difference between rest and comfort. Rest restores. Comfort sedates. Rest prepares you to re-engage. Comfort encourages withdrawal. One supports growth, the other delays it. Knowing the difference is critical. The cost of comfort is not immediate pain. It is delayed regret. It is the quiet realization that capability has diminished. That ambition has softened. That potential was traded for ease. And by the time this realization arrives, the comfort has become habit. Choosing discomfort is not about suffering. It is about alignment. It is about placing yourself where effort produces growth instead of decay. It is about seeking resistance that builds rather than relief that erodes. If it feels too comfortable, it's costing you something. Your mind is either a weapon or a cage. It sharpens your actions or traps them. It gives you control or hands it away. And most people never realize how much power they surrender, simply by reacting without awareness. Emotional control is modern power, not dominance, not aggression, control. In a world designed to provoke, distract, and overwhelm, the person who can remain steady holds an advantage that cannot be taken. When emotions run unchecked, they dictate behavior, and behavior, repeated, becomes identity. Reaction equals weakness, not because emotion is bad, but because unexamined emotion removes choice. When you react automatically, life controls you. Other people control you. Circumstances control you. A comment can ruin your day. A delay can trigger frustration. A setback can collapse momentum. Reaction hands authority to whatever appears in front of you. Most people believe their thoughts are who they are. They identify with every impulse, every fear, every doubt. But thoughts are not commands. They are suggestions. And without discipline, those suggestions turn into habits. Habits turn into patterns. Patterns turn into a life that feels confined. Thought discipline shapes identity. What you allow your mind to dwell on determines how you see the world. Focus trains perception. Repetition trains belief. If your thoughts are scattered, your actions will be scattered. If your thoughts are reactive, your life will feel chaotic. If your thoughts are intentional, your life begins to stabilize. The mind becomes a cage when it is left unmanaged. It replays failures. It anticipates rejection. It magnifies threats. It invents narratives that feel real but are rarely accurate. And because these narratives repeat, they feel permanent. But permanence is an illusion created by repetition. Silence is strength. Not the silence of avoidance, but the silence of restraint. The ability to pause before speaking, to observe before responding, to let emotion pass without obeying it. Silence creates space. And in that space, choice appears. People who master silence are not passive. They are selective. They do not waste energy on every provocation. They do not explain themselves to every critic. They do not react to every distraction. They conserve attention and deploy it deliberately. This conservation is power. Emotional control does not mean suppression. It means regulation. It means recognizing emotion without being ruled by it, feeling anger without acting on it, feeling fear without retreating, feeling desire without surrendering discipline. Control allows emotion to inform decisions without dictating them. When reactions are mastered, clarity increases. Situations slow down. Options become visible. Life feels less hostile because fewer things penetrate your inner state. You begin to move from defense to direction, from impulse to intention. The greatest freedom is not external. It is internal. It is the freedom to choose your response regardless of circumstance, to remain steady when others are reactive, to remain focused when others are scattered, to remain calm when others are overwhelmed. When your mind becomes a weapon, it cuts through noise. When it becomes a cage, it limits movement. The difference is discipline. The difference is awareness. The difference is control. Master your reactions, and life loses its grip on you. Time is the only currency that matters because it is the one thing that never renews. Money can be earned again. Energy can return. Opportunities can reappear. But time, once spent, is gone without trace. It cannot be saved, borrowed, or replaced. And yet, it is treated as if it were endless. Most people understand this intellectually, but live as if it were untrue. They trade hours casually. They give days away without intention. They postpone meaningful action as if tomorrow were guaranteed. But tomorrow is not promised. It is assumed. And assumptions are expensive. Attention is modern wealth. What you focus on shapes what you build. Attention directs learning, effort, and emotion. Wherever attention goes, energy follows. And wherever energy flows consistently, results appear. Those who control their attention control their trajectory. Distraction is theft. It steals time in small, unnoticeable amounts. Minutes dissolve into hours. Hours dissolve into years. Distraction does not announce itself as danger. It presents itself as entertainment, convenience, or harmless escape. But its cost compounds silently. Most people do not lose their time in dramatic ways. They lose it incrementally, through constant interruptions, through endless consumption, through activities that feel busy but produce nothing lasting. And because the loss is gradual, it feels invisible until it is irreversible. Daily habits decide destiny because they are repeated votes for a future identity. Each habit reinforces a direction. Each routine trains behavior. Small actions, repeated consistently, shape outcomes more powerfully than occasional effort. Destiny is not chosen in moments of intensity. It is built in moments of repetition. What you do when no one is watching matters more than what you do when everything is at stake. Quiet routines accumulate. Unnoticed choices compound. Over time, habits either work for you or against you. There is no neutral ground. Many people wait for motivation to value their time. They promise themselves that they will become disciplined later once circumstances improve. But discipline is not the result of freedom. It is the source of it. Respecting time comes before control over it. When time is valued, decisions change. Distractions lose appeal. Priorities sharpen. You begin to ask different questions. Does this matter? Does this compound? Does this move me closer to the life I want, or further from it? These questions refine action. The tragedy is not that time runs out. The tragedy is that it is spent unconsciously, given away to noise, obligation, and avoidance, used to escape discomfort rather than build capability. And by the time awareness arrives, much has already passed. Time does not demand urgency. It demands respect. Those who respect time move differently. They choose deliberately. They protect focus. They align habits with intention. And over time, their lives reflect that alignment. How you spend today decides who you become. The dark truth that sets you free is not comforting, but it is grounding. Life does not get easier. It never has, and it never will. What changes is not the weight of life, but your capacity to carry it. Strength, not circumstance, is what lightens the load. Most people wait for life to improve before they improve themselves. They hope conditions will soften, problems will fade, and obstacles will shrink. But hope is passive. It asks the world to change first. Strength does the opposite. It adapts to reality as it is and grows within it. Strength simplifies life. not because problems disappear, but because fewer things overwhelm you. When you become stronger, decisions become clearer, boundaries become firmer, priorities become obvious. You stop overthinking what no longer matters. You stop reacting to what you cannot control. Complexity fades when capability rises. Clarity replaces hope when you stop wishing and start seeing. Hope delays responsibility by placing faith in uncertainty. Clarity accepts what is in front of you and responds directly. It removes fantasy and replaces it with precision, and precision creates progress. As strength increases, confusion decreases. You no longer chase every opportunity or fear every setback. You learn to distinguish between noise and signal. You act with intention rather than urgency. Life feels calmer, not because it is easier, but because you are no longer fragile within it. Self-mastery is freedom. Not freedom from effort, but freedom from compulsion. Freedom from emotional swings. Freedom from distraction. Freedom from external validation. When you master yourself, fewer things can control you. And when fewer things control you, your range of choice expands. Self-mastery is built quietly, in daily decisions, in repeated discipline, in choosing alignment over comfort. It is not dramatic, it is not visible, but it is transformative. Over time, it creates a stability that cannot be shaken by circumstance. Many people search for freedom and escape. They want to escape difficulty, responsibility, or discomfort. But escape weakens, mastery strengthens, and only strength sustains freedom. Without self-mastery, freedom becomes chaos. With it, freedom becomes direction. Life does not bend for wishes. It responds to capability. It responds to consistency. It responds to those who accept reality and work within it. The world does not reward complaint or entitlement. It responds to strength, clarity, and control. When you stop asking life to be easier, you stop feeling betrayed by it. When you stop waiting for conditions to improve, you begin improving regardless. And in that shift, freedom appears, not as relief, but as confidence. The world doesn't change for you. You change, and the world responds. This is where the audiobook ends, but not where the work does. Nothing you have heard here was meant to overwhelm you or push you into urgency. It was meant to clarify, to remove illusions, to replace fantasy with something quieter and far more useful. Understanding. Acceptance is not surrender. It is alignment with reality. When you accept how life actually works, you stop wasting energy resisting it. You stop arguing with outcomes. You stop expecting fairness, rescue, or ease. And in that acceptance, you gain stability. You move from frustration to direction. Discipline matters more than motivation because motivation is unreliable. It comes and goes with mood and circumstance. Discipline remains. It does not ask how you feel. It asks what must be done. Over time, discipline builds trust with yourself. And self-trust is a form of confidence that cannot be shaken. Strength is chosen, not granted. It is built through repeated decisions to do what is necessary instead of what is comfortable. Comfort feels good in the moment, but strength supports you for a lifetime. When you choose strength, life becomes more manageable, not because it changes, but because you do. Nothing in this audiobook promised ease. It offered clarity, and clarity is what allows you to move forward without confusion or resentment. You may not control every circumstance, but you do control response, direction, and effort. That control is enough. You do not need to rush. You do not need to prove anything. You do not need permission to change. Progress is quiet. Growth is internal. And strength is built one decision at a time. If you take nothing else from this, Remember this: life does not become lighter by avoiding its weight. It becomes lighter by becoming stronger. Life is harsh, but once you stop fighting the truth, it becomes lighter.